My name is Ryan, and I was just passing through. That's all it was, supposed to be a quick stop for gas, before heading back onto the highway. I didn't expect to find myself trapped in a nightmare. It was nearly 2 a.m. when I spotted the gas station. The neon sign buzzed erratically, casting an eerie red glow onto the pavement. The place looked old, abandoned even, but the pumps were still operational. I pulled up, got out, and started fueling. That's when I noticed it. A man standing at the edge of the lot, just outside the reach of the flickering lights. He wasn't moving, just watching. I tried to ignore him, but my skin crawled. My gut told me to hurry up, so I turned back to my car only to find the pump screen blank. No numbers, no prompts, just black. I pressed a few buttons. Nothing. Frustrated, I glanced toward the store, thinking I'd asked the clerk inside, but there was no store. Where the building had been just seconds ago, there was now only darkness. A black void, stretching endlessly beyond the pumps. My breath caught in my throat. I turned back to my car. Heart pounding, the man was closer, much closer. His face was obscured by the shadows, but I could hear his breathing, ragged, wet, like air escaping through broken pipes. I staggered backward, reaching for my car door, but it was locked. My keys were inside. The air around me grew thick, suffocating, pressing against my chest. I turned to run, but there was nowhere to go. The highway was gone. The world beyond the gas station had vanished into a swirling, endless blackness. I wasn't on a road anymore. I was nowhere. A voice slithered through the air, distorted and echoing like it was coming from inside my own head. You shouldn't have stopped. The lights flickered wildly, casting long, twisting shadows across the pavement. I turned, desperate for an escape, and then everything went black. I woke up in my car, parked at a gas station miles away. My tank was full. The receipt sat in the passenger seat, dated with today's date, but stamped with a station name that doesn't exist. I don't know what happened last night. I don't know where I went, but I know one thing for sure: that wasn't a gas station, and I was never supposed to stop. My name is Chris, and I work the night shift at a gas station on a nearly abandoned stretch of highway. I've had my fair share of weird encounters: drifters, sleep-deprived truckers, even the occasional petty thief. But last night, something happened that I can't explain. At around 3:15 a.m., an old car pulled up to pump 4. The vehicle was ancient, one of those 1950s models, with faded paint and rust creeping along the edges. The headlights flickered, and the engine let out a low guttural rumble as it shut off. A man stepped out, tall, thin, and dressed in an old-fashioned suit, like he had just walked out of a black-and-white film. He had slicked back hair and a strange, almost artificial-looking face, as if his skin was too tight. I watched as he slowly approached the store, his shoes clicking against the pavement. The bell chimed as he entered. He walked up to the counter, eyes locked onto mine. "1 pack of smokes," he said, his voice dry and raspy. I turned to grab the pack from behind me, and when I placed it on the counter, he was gone. The door hadn't opened. The bell hadn't chimed, but the store was empty. I swallowed hard and stepped outside, scanning the lot. His car was still there, sitting silently at the pump, but no one was inside. I checked the security monitors. The footage showed him getting out of the car, walking toward the store, but after he stepped inside, he vanished. No sign of him leaving. No sign of him anywhere. My skin crawled. I went back to the counter, heart pounding, unsure of what to do. That's when I saw it. The pack of cigarettes was gone, and in its place was a $5 bill, crisp, untouched, mint condition, dated 1954. I stared at it, my hands shaking. Then I heard Eton engine roaring to life outside. I turned back to the monitors. The old car's headlights flickered once more. The engine let out that same low growl. But the driver's seat was empty. The car backed away from the pump on its own, rolled onto the highway, and disappeared into the night. I called my manager that morning, still rattled. He laughed. "Yeah, you met him. Happens every few years. He always pays. Don't think too much about it. I don't know what I saw last night, but I do know one thing. I'll never work the night shift again." My name is Jake, and I took a wrong turn last night. I was driving through the countryside, lost, my gas gauge dipping dangerously close to empty. Just when I thought I was doomed, I saw a neon sign flickering in the distance. An old gas station. Sitting alone in the darkness. Relieved, I pulled in and parked beside the only pump. The place was ancient dusty windows, a cracked icebox near the entrance, and a rusted sign that barely read open. I stepped out, inhaling the damp night air, and walked toward the store. The bell above the door jingled as I entered. The interior smelled of stale cigarettes and old wood. Behind the counter stood the attendant, a tall, gaunt man with hollowed-out eyes and a fixed, eerie grin. His uniform was outdated, his name tag unreadable. "Pump 3, I said, pulling out my wallet. He nodded, but said nothing, just stared. An uncomfortable silence settled between us. I handed him a 20, and he took it, his long fingers brushing against mine. His skin was ice cold. I quickly turned and left, eager to finish fueling and leave. But as I reached the pump, something was wrong. My car door was open. I knew I had closed it. I was certain. My heart pounded as I scanned my surroundings, but the place was empty. Just the whisper of wind against the cracked pavement. Then I heard it, soft footsteps. Inside my car, I rushed forward, yanking the door open. Empty, but the seat, it was wet, like someone had been sitting there, recently, shaken. I grabbed the nozzle and started fueling, glancing back at the store. The attendant was still there, standing motionless behind the counter, watching me. His grin had widened. The gas pump clicked, signaling it was full. I slammed the nozzle back and jumped into my car, locking the doors. As I started the engine, I made one last mistake. I looked in the rearview mirror. The attendant was standing directly behind my car. I screamed and floored it, tires screeching as I tore out of the station. I didn't stop, didn't look back. Not until I reached a well-lit rest stop miles away. Only then did I allow myself to breathe. I leaned back, exhaling shakily, and glanced at my rearview mirror again. Just to be sure, the back seat was empty. But in the darkness outside, beneath the fluorescent glow of the rest stop sign, stood the gas station attendant, still grinning, still watching. My name is Daniel. I'm a truck driver, and last night, I made the worst stop of my life. I was running low on gas while driving through a desolate highway. The only station for miles was an old, run-down place, barely lit by flickering neon. I pulled in, but something felt ... off. The pumps were rusted. The convenience store's windows were cracked, and there wasn't a single car in sight. I stepped out, shivering against the cold. The air was unnaturally still. No wind, no crickets, just silence. I walked toward the pump, but before I could grab the nozzle, I noticed something. The price display was blank. The buttons were faded, as if they hadn't been pressed in decades. That's when I heard it. A whisper. At first I thought it was the wind, except there wasn't any wind. The sound came from inside the store. I turned, staring into the dimly lit interior. Shelves were stocked, but everything looked ancient, covered in dust. A shadow shifted near the counter. "Hello?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The overhead lights inside flickered. For a split second, I saw them standing in the aisles, unmoving, their faces obscured by darkness. Then the lights went out entirely. I backed up. My truck felt miles away. My heart pounded as the glass door creaked open by itself. The whispering grew louder, overlapping voices hissing in a language I didn't understand. The air turned ice, cold, and my breath fogged in front of me. Then I saw it, a figure emerging from the darkness inside the store. Unlike the others, this one moved. Its limbs were elongated, stretching unnaturally as it shuffled forward. Its face was an empty void, but I could feel it watching me, studying me. I ran. I jumped into my truck, fumbling with the keys. The engine sputtered, but wouldn't start. In the rearview mirror, I saw the figures step outside, their silhouettes unnatural and jagged, like broken mannequins, their heads tilted, as if listening. A hand slammed against my window pail, bony fingers scraping against the glass. I screamed, turning the key frantically. The engine roared to life. I floored it, speeding off without looking back. After what felt like hours, I reached a rest stop and called the police. They checked the location. "There's nothing there," they said. "That station burned down 20 years ago." I didn't sleep last night, and I'll never stop at another gas station again. But this morning, I found something on my windshield, a receipt from that gas station. The ink was fresh, my name printed at the bottom. I burned it. But no matter how much I try to forget, I know one thing: that place isn't done with me yet. My name is Ethan. I work the graveyard shift at a remote gas station just off the interstate. It's a lonely job, but it pays well enough. Most nights, I pass the time cleaning the aisles, refilling the coffee machine, and keeping an eye on the security cameras. The occasional trucker stops by for gas, but other than that, it's dead quiet. Last night, however, something changed. At around 2:30 a.m., I saw movement on the security monitor. A figure stood at pump 3, completely still. The headlights of his old beat-up sedan were on, but he wasn't pumping gas, just standing there, facing the station. The way he stood, stiff and unnatural, sent a chill up my spine. I picked up the intercom and pressed the button. "Hey, bud, need any help?" No response. He didn't even flinch. I tried again. Still nothing. I stepped outside, the cold air biting at my skin. "Sir, are you all right?" As I approached, I noticed his face, or lack thereof. The man had no features. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin stretched over a skull-like shape. My stomach turned. Then, he moved. His body jerked toward me with unnatural speed, his arms flailing like a puppet on tangled strings. I stumbled back and sprinted toward the store, slamming the door shut behind me. The automatic lock engaged, and I gasped for air, my heart pounding like a drum. I turned back to the monitor. The man was gone. His car remained, lights still on, but he was nowhere in sight. Suddenly, a sharp tapping echoed from the glass door. I whipped around. He was there, his faceless head pressed against the glass, a twisted attempt at a smile forming where his mouth should have been. Then, the power cut out. The store plunged into darkness, the hum of the refrigerator silenced. I reached under the counter for the emergency flashlight, my hands shaking. When I flicked it on, the man was gone again. A metallic scraping sound echoed from the aisles. Someone or something was inside with me. I had no choice. I ran, bolting through the emergency exit. I didn't stop until I reached my car. I locked the doors and started the engine, my breath coming in ragged gasps. In the rearview mirror, I saw the gas station's flickering sign come back to life, and under the red glow of the neon letters, the faceless man stood, watching me drive away. I called my boss first thing in the morning. He laughed. "Ah, you met him, huh?" he said casually. "Don't worry, Ethan. He never leaves the station. Just don't go outside next time." I quit that day, and I never looked back.